Welcome to our daily session on Intro to Kabbalah. Today I want to start talking about two different common and yet very important concept. It's called in the Lashon Kabbalah in Hebrew. It's called Or v'Kli. Or means light. Kli is a vessel. We see exactly what that means. So let's say, for example, I am talking to, let's say, David, right? I'm talking to David, or I'm talking, let's say, about David. So when I refer to him, I don't refer to his flesh, his essence, his body, but I refer to his essence, to really who it is, right? So based on what we defined beforehand, when I'm referring to David, I'm talking to the tzura of David, not to the chomer. When I'm talking, let's say, for example, about David, I'm talking about his spiritual entity, his intellect. It's not his body. I'm not talking to the body. I'm talking to the tzura. And that tzura, that again, tzura refers to your spiritual formation, and the chomer means to your body, to materialistic formation or entity. So when I'm referring to David, so I'm referring to his tzura, to his intellect, neshama, soul, spirit, and that would, when I'm referring to, it refers to everything that consists of that. In other words, all his abilities, all his qualities, all his manners, and so on and so forth. The body is the vessel that holds that surah. The body is the vessel in which that holds the internal content, which will be his spirit. The human body, by his actions, could reveal to us or indicate to us about the tzura itself. In other words, the body could, by his actions, could reveal all his spiritual powers within him. In other words, a person might look like a football player, strong and powerful and so on and so forth. However, if his internal koach is weak, and if internally and spiritually is weak, by his action, or in this case, lack of his actions, I could tell a lot about his spirit. In other words, he doesn't want to do things, he's feeling bad, and so on and so forth, all these things that would show that spiritually is very, very weak. And then on the other hand, you can have a person who's like a twig, it's like a katanchik, as a small guy, like a twig, and he goes and he does, and he's a firecracker. I mean, so it tells you about his internal abilities based on his physical actions. We could learn a lot like that. Now, the body, in a way, translates or converts the spiritual aspect to a known language, or to a known code, or just gives us a better indication on that. So he's like the converter of the spiritual into a language in which we could understand and we could relate to. Something that we could understand by the people, we could be, learned by the people, and so on and so forth. So in a way, the body is the vehicle to the expression of the spiritual. And that's where psychologists, in a way, if they were understood that, could learn a lot. And in a way, that's what they do. If you're having a good clinical psychologist, he's able to, by the actions of the person, he would be able to tell you about what's going on with him spiritually. Of course, when we refer to spiritually and internally, we are not just talking about the DSM, characteristics. We're also talking about spiritual attributes besides internal processes that happen in a person. Now, for example, if a person would tell you, if you go to any like normal psychologist or mental health professional, you tell them, "Oh, I'm depressed." They'll tell you, "What do you mean you're depressed?" well, I don't know, I'm not in the mood. Well, that necessarily counts of depressed. So therefore, in psychology, we'll tell you, no, this person is not depressed because you have to have X amount of weeks with this kind of behavior and so on and so forth in order to qualify as depression. And then there's going to have XS1 and XS2 and all kinds of different things like that. However, from a Kabbalistic point of view, from a spiritual point of view, if somebody tells you I'm depressed, in other words, I see he's lethargic. I said, what is happening? He will tell me, and then I will be able to get something different from that, even though we are doing something similar in terms of analyzing the internal processes that happen into the person, Kabbalistically and call it psychology wise, is going to be quite different in terms of the results and so on and so forth. Because uh, using psychology, I refer to all clinicians in terms of that, that do that, whether it's the clinical social workers, mental health counselors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That would refer to the spirit as in a form of a scientific thing. And I think, to my very insignificant opinion, I think psychology lost a lot of it is glamour and potential by its tendency of those who set the policy to make it more scientific. In other words, to measure things because I guess it's some kind of inferior syndrome that they have, rather than to make it more understanding the overall scheme, the holistic aspect, the whole in terms of wholeness of what constitutes of the spirit of the person, the forces that apply upon it. According to Kabbalah, we'll be able to understand even further by identifying the forces that act on the spirit. We can identify them and actually help and understand things better. However, when the body acts in a certain way, in a way the body translates or reveals by its actions the capacity or whatever internal processes are happening in the person. So, for example, if a person is and he uses different terms, of course, but in a way they're similar. So if the person is very active and so on and so forth, and is jumping and so on and so on, you can tell that he has a very strong personality. And regardless of the body is a mistake. We pay too much attention to the body. We don't pay attention to the spirit of the person and everything else that goes with it. Now, an aspect that, for example, psychology does not put together is also the quality of the spirit. In other words, you could be perfectly, normal in terms of psychology, but morally a horrific person. But psychology does not take into account your mental state based on your morals and so on and so forth, which Kabbalah does. So Kabbalah is more sophisticated by all means than all psychology put together. Now, another name that we use for the concept of the tzura, of what we call the spiritual process that happen in you, or the spiritual reality of the person, another name for that, another term for that would be or, which means light. That light that is inside the kli, inside the vessel, which is your body, that acts upon the body to execute, or sometimes in behalf of the spirit as well. That's how the body acts. So the concept of kli, a light and a vessel, is the same as we use when we use the terms of chomer v'tzura, material and shape. And that's something that we need to understand. That's why we had to speak beforehand about body and soul, about all these things, to understand really what it is. The kli, which is the vessel, is the one that reveals and expresses the essence of the light. Why? Because by its actions, when a person, for example, thinking, let's say, a certain idea, as long as he's not using his mouth, or to that matter, any other appropriate limb, right? That idea is going to be hidden. It's not going to be revealed. It's inside your heart. You're not revealing to everybody because you haven't acted upon it, right? For example, if you, let's say, hate a person or despise a person, if you're not doing anything about it, nobody can know. Nobody knows what you're feeling inside. The problem comes when you start becoming the opposite of, in other words, you become a hypocrite, right? You really hate somebody and you pretend you love him or you pretend you care about him. So, but usually to most people, your actions really indicate what you're feeling inside, right? As we say, echad bapeh ve'echad balev, one in the mouth and one in the heart, right? So the way to reveal the idea and really connect it to others or to relate to it to others really depends on the vessel in which was chosen to that particular task to reveal that idea. Okay, now we could really reveal an idea by talking, and therefore the mouth becomes the vessel for that, and we could express it an idea by writing it, and the hand become the vessel for that, and then the letters, the hand write the letters, and the letters form into words, and the words form into a language in which I was able to describe that idea to you that was in my head. That's why when you write poetry or something like that, and by the way, that's why a lot of the prophecies were given in a poetic thing, and it depends on the prophet himself. It was therefore his interpretation based on his own entities, right? Was because he was talking from his mouth. Was you could get a different type of nevuah, of prophecy, based on the entity of the person himself. Okay, so so if I'm writing, so if I'm talking, so therefore my mouth is the vessel. If I'm writing, so the vessels to reveal the light of the tzurah are my hands, the ink, the letters, and so on and so forth. And these are the way I used, or the methods that I use to really hand it over my idea. The light always is internal. It refers to the internal, right? Or that's what we said, darkness fell upon him. What do we mean darkness fell upon him? In other words, there is not light that's coming out. A person we call it marash chorat, and that's what we describe also certain types of colors with this certain types of emotions, and we know that. And the kli, the vessel, is the external. The light is the essence itself, and that sits upon and dresses itself and directs the actions of the kli. In other words, if I will take an analogy of a driver, argument's sake, and a car, or an operator of a machine, the operator of the machine to that matter would be the tzurah, because he directs the machine to do whatever he wants. So are we to our body. We direct our actions. Our body is a captive of the soul in a way, but it's a prison within a prison. One time they played a role because the soul cannot do anything, depends on the body, but the body basically does whatever the soul wants. So therefore, you can't tell me, argument's sake, and that's what we do. You can't tell me that you love me when you hit me, right? There's a shortage in the system, and something does not really apply. However, how is it possible that we convince ourselves that somebody that loves us hates us? That creates a sheker into ourselves. So therefore, we have to deny our own selves and the own things that we feel, and let somebody else become a tzurah. Somebody else becomes our entity. He takes over our being, and that's what we call abuse in that matter. Now, because of that action, the action does reveal the light, or the quality of your internal intent or internal essence or internal reality. In other words, by your actions, you could really tell us who you are. As we always say, Chazal always says that. Tell us who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Why? Because you chose those friends. So therefore, they are a reflection of you. They are an expression of your own internal acts, or internal essence, or internal reality, or basically really who you are. You can't tell me you're such a righteous person when you do certain things. Now, sometimes that's the problem that we come into. argument's sake, let's say I have a person who is, I don't know, he does evictions all day long. He does not care, no mercy with him whatsoever. She's a widow, and she will save Jews in the Holocaust. I don't care, lady, you out of here, right? However, he gives a lot of money to, so therefore, how could I praise him for being such a righteous person? Because his actions really reveal a certain internal darkness. Could I call him such a righteous person? And that's how we get distorted. We should not misinterpret it, the actions of the person, and say the actions are one thing and the person is something else. Okay. However, for educational purposes, and that's something we need to understand, you need to be able to tell the child to create a certain, in order to correct it, you need to create a certain separation. So, for example, if the kid does something that is wrong, let's say he failed, he did something bad in class, right? So if you're going to say to him, you are bad, or you are a liar, or you are this, what you are doing, you are taking his action and redefining it to him that that's really who he is internally. In order to clean it, to fix it, and to correct it, you need to tell them, your actions don't really fit who you are. In other words, you're telling them, listen, buddy, you got to be in control of yourself to really let the true self of you come out and not some bad action. I remember there was if I would take it now and, I'll probably, would take it into shreds. When I was a kid, there was a book in Israel that was, the kid's book that's saying, it's not me, it's the bad kid inside of me. Of course, that's probably a recipe for developing schizophrenia and multiple personalities and so on and so forth. However, the idea is that even though you did something bad, you should be aware of it and fix your actions. The takenet pe'ulotav, that the actions would fit really who you are, and you need to really bring that true person inside of you out. And that's why it's important to be able to distinguish between this and that, but call the action. Most of the time, when we're talking about adults, we're not talking about kids, we're talking about adults, because kids are still a chomer be'ad hayotzer, they're still a material. Adults are really, they think, they reason, they're able to think, they're able to reason, they know what they're doing, they're aware of what they're doing, and therefore don't tell me that you're such a righteous person when you're acting like a maneuver, you're acting like a real wicked person. That's who you are. Internally, that's who you are. Okay? And that is a responsibility that's laid upon you. And that's why Judaism is very different than many other religions. So we spoke before about tzura that comes, the shape, the internal that comes and uses the materialistic as a chomer, uses that as a platform and operates it. Because Akadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create different types of creatures that are different from one another in their levels and so on and so forth, and in their actions and so on and so forth. And Akadosh Baruch Hu matched every kind of a pe'ula, of an action, based on the appropriate tzura that he has. So, for example, a dog needs to have a certain qualities. That's why needs to have a certain action. That's why a dog needs to have certain qualities. According to that, the concept of Gilgul, of reincarnation, makes sense. Why? It's a form of a punishment. You chose by your actions to act like a dog or to do certain things. So when you're going to come to reincarnate yourself, to come into this world, we're going to give you the body in which you really were inside. You acted like a dog in this world, by the human argument's sake, right? That means that internally you were a dog. Guess what? Next time you're going to come around, the next circle around, you're going to become one. That's the reasoning behind reincarnation, one of the reasons behind reincarnation. Because Akadosh Baruch Hu mat'im, he fits the tzura with the chomer, based on what needs to be done, the action that needs to be done. That's why Akadosh Baruch Hu said to us that we should be all lagoim. We should be, again, look at the word all lagoim. Every time we use the word orna, light, You understand in terms of internalism. We should be all Agoyim, a light to the nation. In other words, we should reflect a positive attribute on the actions of the people. We are the pnimiyut. We Jews should be the internal part that reflects its goodness based, in order to fix a certain thing. And that will be tikkun olam. In order to fix the world, I need to have pnimiyut. I need to have light. That's where we're supposed to be light legoim. And when the Jew is obsessed with materialism and materialistic aspects, and his actions don't fit what it is to be a Jew, therefore you're betraying the action that needs to be done. In other words, you violated a certain order here. And the order is that the internal affects the external. Now, as a result of that, you acted wrong. And that's the problem. We should know better. So, and the same thing like this, like for example, even when we're talking about different animals, right? There's different types of animals. There is an animal that, in the animal kingdom, there's the chai. There are different levels of animals, and that's okay. There are animals, there are mammals which are higher level, and there are monkeys, and there are dogs, and there are chimpanzees, and there are birds, which is also an animal kingdom, and so on and so forth, right? For different reasons, that there is a level as well. In domem, in solids also, there's a difference. There are rocks, and there's dirt, and there are atoms, and so on and so forth. Each one is needed to execute a different action, and Kadosh Baruch Hu fits the pnimiyut, the nefesh, or the spiritual aspect based on the action that needs to be done. So therefore, when Kadosh Baruch Hu takes that soul and puts it into a Jewish body and brings it to the world, and you don't do what you do, you have a problem. Because you're betraying the task in which you were assigned to. And this is not about being racist and being, okay, we superior, Gentiles are less than Jews. It's just different jobs. As much as you understand, and that in order to create a balance in terms of a education of a child, right, you need to have two parents of two different sexes. In other words, you need to have a mother, female, father, male. Not that male is superior to female or the other way around, but rather they have different tasks assigned. So in order to create the balance, HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts a neshama here, a soul into a woman's body, which is appropriate for that, and a soul into a man's body, which is appropriate to the task that it's needed, and so on and so forth. Now you understand how the world needs to be. And now you understand why those people who are against that don't understand a thing about reality or about spirituality, because they would understand that there has to be that. There is the tzura, there is the chomer, there is the light, there is a vessel, there is the driver, there is a car, and so on and so forth. As much as in airplanes, for example, in jet planes or in big planes, right? You have a pilot and you have a co-pilot. A co-pilot is not inferior to the pilot. Or if you have a navigator in a fighter jet, right? They both needed to accomplish the test. There's a task that needs to be done. The pilot flies it. The navigator tells him where to fly. The same thing: man, woman, husband, wife, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, that's why. Okay, we're not getting into this now. Now, in terms of if we're going to use a different analogy to that, you could talk about maybe two parallel ladders that are going like this. One has different stages, different steps on it. One it is of chomer, which is material, which on the bottom step, right? You have the material of the lowest possible reality or existence possible, right? And on the upper one, you have the best material of all, the most refined of all. In other words, let's say on the bottom I have, mud with rocks, with metal and everything mixed together. It's all big shebang. And then on the top level, I have pure gold, 24 karat, 99.999% pure, the highest, level, or diamonds to that matter. On the bottom, I have some, rocks that are mixed in with diamonds and needs to be polished and do this, and then on the top I have the most desire one, flawless and so on and so forth. So and we need to go step. On this, on the other one, on the other letter, it's the same thing. We have madrigot of the levels of tzura, the steps of shape, of spirituality that fit each level, and they're parallel to the chomer on the other one. They go hand in hand. In other words, you're not going one letter at a time. You're putting 2 feet on 2 different ladders at the same time. Now, you won't be able to go if you are, one level here and then the other one, you're one level here. And that we need to understand in terms of accepting who we are. And that would create a problem when I'm thinking that I'm such a big spiritual person and I'm actually not, right? When I haven't refined my neshama, because my neshama, let's say the body was put in and I'm on the highest level. I'm a speaking entity. I'm a human being, right? But by my actions, I'm acting like a behemah. I'm not going to be able to go anywhere. Well, what do I need to do? I need to therefore refine my midot, to refine my tzura, to find the light that comes out and reflects out of me to fit the level that I'm at. So therefore, I need to fix myself up. And the same thing when you go further. Now, it goes into layers upon layers. Also, now I'm a Jew. So I was expected as a Jew. Now I need to act differently. What would be good for a Gentile is not good for a Jew. You expected more. And now you became a Jew. Now you became a Talmid Chacham. You start to learn Torah. And now what you expected is more than just a regular Jew. And so on and so on and so forth. However, it has to be hand in hand, hand in hand, hand in hand. One elevates the other. And you walk in them similar. So therefore, the problem is, again, if you are not aligned in those 2 ladders in which you're climbing up, the tzura and the chomer, you have a problem. You're stuck. You're not going anywhere. So, for example, let's take another example. Let's say we have a baby, right? So there is a baby. The baby has a chomer. In other words, he has a body. And he also has a tzura, which will be the neshama, which will be the soul. An adult also has a chomer v'tzura, also has a body and a soul. However, the neshama of the adult is much more developed and it's much more refined. And as a result of that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him a certain duties and obligations fit for that level. And for the baby, right, which the soul is not yet fully developed, he gave him a body that is not fully developed. That's why if you want to know why, for example, humans take so longer to mature, where a calf or a colt that is just being born can stand within minutes on their feet and start running, is because that level of the neshama that needs to develop. So therefore, it cannot be that you're going to have a body of an adult with the neshama with a spirit of a baby. I mean, we call people like this, we're going to put them in group homes, right? Or the other way around. Imagine you have a neshama of a kid with a body, the neshama of an adult in the body of a kid. It's going to create a disturbance in the body, in the essence of who this whole thing is. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu fits it, right? Slowly. Now you're supposed to develop also. In other words, if you find yourself that you still are being thrilled and excited over the same thing that you were excited, let's say you were 25 years old, you were 15, I'm going to tell you something, means that your development was arrested at that point. You should develop, you should grow out of things. If not, means that you are stuck. Spiritually, you are stuck. You haven't developed. And what do we get out of this? We get distortion out of this. And we need to understand that. So it's not saying that what I liked when I was 5 years old, when I liked when I was 15 years old, or when I liked when I was 20 years old was anything wrong with that. For the time, it was the appropriate thing to do. However, if I'm 20, let's say I'm 50 years old, and I still like the same things and the same interest that I had when I was 20 years old, means that my spiritual development was arrested. Okay, so we need to understand that, and that's a check that you need to ask yourself all the time. So to kind of bring it to a closure here, we say, so therefore the essence of an object, of a thing, or whatever it is, and its quality depends on the tzura, the spiritual expression of it, and its spiritual force, how strong it will be spiritually. And that tzura, that light, would determine the characteristics of his character and of his reality. In other words, there's something in your reality, and that's what you could see it, for example, in Chachamim. When a Chacham has really elevated himself, a big rabbi or something has elevated himself, like for example, Nachum Ish Gamzu, when people were coming to him and saying, "My goodness, how could you live like this? You know, your roof is leaking, you have boils in your legs, and you have nothing." He says, "I don't know, it's all good, man. It's all good. I'm feeling fine." So that's a refinement. You know, it's all good for him, right? So that's his reality. His reality is that when his neshama was so developed, the light that came out of him was so great that his whole reality was good. Regarding to if I would look at it, I would say, "Oh my goodness, this is horrible." So it's horrible. It's because that's the way I see it, because I interpret it. And why do I interpret it like this? Because my reality is as such. If I'm good, I see it's all good. If I'm bad, I see everything bad. And that's why you should avoid listening to media and to experts and so on and so forth. You should develop yourself. Therefore, we could say that the tzura, or other words, the neshama, is the essence of your reality. So if your reality is bad, it means that your neshama is bad. And I keep telling you this time and time again. That's a key point to understand and to remember. It's a key point to understand and remember. What you feel is a reflection of really who you are. Look at what you have. Don't look at what you don't have. And the problem is that, you know, we are bad because everything we look is bad. We're never happy. We're never content. Something is really wrong with us. There are creatures in which by them the tzura, the spiritual ability, is going to be constant. It's going to be the same all the time. And throughout the time in which they exist, there's no substantial difference to them. However, mankind, by the ability of mankind to choose, to have a free choice, he could change his tzura in him. He can change the essence of who he is. That's why Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the concept of tshuva, of repentance, the ability and the authority to change who you are. That's why one should not hand anybody the authority to tell him who he is, like the media is trying to tell you, or like society is trying to tell you. So by doing, for example, and how do you, the best way to do so? By doing Torah, doing mitzvot, to elevate yourself spiritually, to be more interested in spiritual things, to be more in tune to your neshama, and so on and so forth. So therefore, a person that really fixed his neshama and improved his neshama, Rabotai, he improved and fixed his essence. He improved his reality. So changing your reality for good is not dependent on how many bedrooms you have in your house. The change of your reality depends on how good you are inside, internally. And this is fundamental to understand. People, I mean, if we said that people have choice, right? There are those angels who stand in one place, and angels don't have a free choice. Therefore, they could not change to improve their ability inside of them. So if we will give the ability to improve and to change it, there is a chance that we can go down. So that's why we need to be on guard. An angel is placed in a place, and that's where he is. Doesn't go up, doesn't go down. And that's the remez that they said in the Sulam Yaakov. The Sulam Yaakov, the Sam Mefarshim, there's two Sulamot. Why? Because Malachim olim veyordim bo. There was a ladder when the dream of Jacob. If you go on a ladder, can another person, if you go up on a ladder, can another person go down on a ladder? It's impossible. So there were two sulamot. Or there was one sulam that goes one up and one down. And the ability, they told him, listen, Yaakov, you have a chance now. Either elevate your stuff, you're going to Makom to Lavan. Ishma ad achshav, you lived in the schut of your parents. But now it's going to be all on you. Ishma motek, listen carefully. You can go up or you can go down. And the question is, yes, Malach can go up. No, Malach cannot go down. Malach can go down. Malach cannot go down. Not up or not down. However, because he doesn't have a choice. So there was a remes to Yaakov to tell him, you have a free choice. You better choose right. So in a principle, in a concept, that's what we said. A human can reach a higher level than an angel, than a malach. Even the highest angel, the archangel of all archangels. A human can reach a higher level. Because even to a malach like this, let's say Memtet, right, aka Chanoch, Matatron, he also doesn't have closeness as Moshe Rabbeinu had with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Kadosh Baruch Hu spoke to him face to face like a person speaks to his friend. Even the Malachim says, what we say in Musaf, Ayeh mekom kevodo la'aritzo. Where is he? We don't know. They just hear the voice of God talking to them and they do it. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to God face to face, Rabotai. So for that matter, I'm going to tell you, we have a terrific opportunity now with all this closure that we have to really take a deep look at ourselves and to really see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be strengthened. And then we're going to fix this. Rabotai, you wanted Kabbalah, you got Kabbalah. Fix yourself up and actually fix your essence, fix your reality. And by all means, it's going to make it into a better world. Rabotai, salvation is on the way. However, it's dependent on you. Don't wait for anybody to do your job. It's your job to do. Choose right. Have a great day.